The restaurant was quiet in that soft, comforting way that older places often are. Warm yellow lights glowed from the chandeliers. The scent of fresh bread and roasted vegetables floated gently through the air. Soft piano music played somewhere in the background, just loud enough to be heard if you listened for it. It was the kind of place people chose for anniversaries, birthdays, or first dates they hoped might become something more. Ethan Caldwell stood near the entrance beside his daughter, Lily. Ethan was 38. Tall. Dark hair carefully combed. The sort of man who wore a navy suit even on evenings when he didn't have to. Years of running a growing technology company had taught him to stay composed, stay organized, and stay guarded. Beside him stood Lily, 6 years old, with soft blonde curls that bounced when she moved. She wore a pale pink dress and shiny little shoes that clicked gently on the wooden floor. Lily held her father's hand, swinging it slightly as children do when they are excited about something. "Daddy," she whispered, looking around the room with wide eyes, "this place looks like a castle." Ethan smiled faintly. "I suppose it does." Truthfully, Ethan rarely came to places like this anymore. Before Lily's mother passed away 6 years earlier, restaurants had been their small tradition. Friday evenings. Candlelight. Quiet laughter. But after the funeral, after the long months of grief, Ethan had slowly built walls around his life. Work. Routines. Raising Lily. That was enough. Or at least, that's what he had told himself. Tonight's dinner wasn't really his idea. His assistant at work had gently insisted he try meeting someone again. Just dinner, she had said. No pressure. So Ethan had agreed. But now that he stood there, waiting, he felt the familiar discomfort rising in his chest. He glanced at his watch. "Daddy," Lily said softly, "is the lady coming?" "Yes," Ethan replied. "Her name is Sarah." Just then, the restaurant door opened. A woman stepped inside, brushing a few strands of light brown hair away from her face. She wore a simple turquoise dress with a light cream sweater over it. Nothing flashy. Nothing dramatic. Just calm, warm, and quietly elegant. She spotted Ethan and Lily and walked toward them with a gentle smile. "Hi," she said softly. "You must be Ethan." Her voice had a warmth that reminded people of friendly neighbors and quiet libraries. "Yes," Ethan said, nodding politely. "And this is my daughter, Lily." Sarah knelt slightly so she was at Lily's eye level. "Well, hello there," she said. "I've heard you're the most important person in your dad's world." Lily grinned immediately. "That's true." Sarah laughed softly. The hostess led them to a table near the tall windows where candlelight flickered gently between them. For a few minutes, conversation flowed easily enough. Sarah talked about her work as a school librarian. Ethan spoke about the long hours of running his company. Lily occasionally chimed in with cheerful comments about her school and her favorite cartoon characters. But slowly, Ethan grew quiet. Something about the situation felt uncomfortable to him. It wasn't Sarah's fault. She was kind, patient, genuine. But Ethan had spent years convincing himself that dating again meant risking too much. Opening doors that had been closed for a long time. After 20 minutes, he cleared his throat. "I'm sorry," he said, reaching for his wallet. "I think this might have been a mistake." Sarah looked surprised but remained calm. "Oh," she said gently. "I understand." There was no anger in her voice. Just quiet acceptance. Ethan stood up from the table. "Daddy?" Lily asked, confused. He placed a few bills on the table. "We should go." Sarah lowered her eyes politely, giving him space to leave with dignity. But just as Ethan turned toward the door, Lily tugged lightly on his sleeve. "Daddy," she whispered. Ethan leaned down slightly. "Yes?" Lily looked back at Sarah, then up at her father. "But Daddy, she's nice." The words were simple. The kind of honest observation that only a child would say out loud. Ethan froze. For a moment, the room felt very still. He looked back at Sarah. She was sitting quietly at the table, hands folded gently in front of her, pretending not to listen. But Ethan could see something in her expression. A softness. A patience that didn't demand anything from him. Lily tugged his sleeve again. "Mommy was nice too," she said softly. The words hit Ethan like a warm memory drifting back through time. He suddenly remembered the early days with Lily's mother. The way kindness had been the thing that first drew him to her. Not excitement. Not perfection. Just kindness. Ethan slowly exhaled. Then he turned around. "Sarah," he said quietly. She looked up. "Yes?" Ethan gave a small, slightly embarrassed smile. "I think I may have been trying to leave too quickly." Sarah smiled gently. "That happens sometimes." He returned to the table and sat back down. Lily beamed like she had just solved the world's biggest problem. Dinner resumed, but this time something had shifted. Ethan stopped worrying about the past or the future. He simply listened. Sarah talked about the children who visited her library every day. How one boy insisted on checking out dinosaur books every week even though he already knew every page by heart. How another little girl loved fairy tales so much she once tried to build a tiny castle out of library chairs. Lily giggled at every story. And Ethan found himself smiling more than he had expected. An hour passed. Then another. The restaurant slowly grew quieter as other diners left. At one point Lily yawned and leaned against her father's arm. Sarah noticed. "She's had a big evening," she said softly. Ethan nodded. "Yes, she has." They stood near the door once more as the night came to an end. Outside, the air was cool and calm. Streetlights glowed softly on the pavement. "Well," Sarah said, "thank you for dinner." Ethan looked at her thoughtfully. "Thank you for being patient with me." She smiled. Sometimes people just need a little time. Lily, half asleep in Ethan's arms, lifted her head. "Daddy?" "Yes?" "Can we see Miss Sarah again?" Sarah laughed quietly. Ethan hesitated for a moment. Then he nodded. "I think we'd both like that." Sarah's smile warmed the cool evening air. As Ethan carried Lily toward the car, he felt something inside him loosen, just a little. Not a dramatic change. Not a grand new beginning. Just the quiet realization that life sometimes offers second chances in the most unexpected ways. And sometimes, all it takes to notice them is a small voice saying something simple and true. "But Daddy, she's nice." Years later, Ethan would remember that evening not as the night of a blind date, but as the night his daughter reminded him of something adults sometimes forget. Kindness is not loud. It doesn't rush. It simply waits patiently at the table, hoping someone will stay long enough to see it. And if they do, life can begin again in the most gentle and beautiful ways.